Now that we have Ninja Forms installed on our system, it's time to go through the different form fields that are available and take a look at the form creation interface. Once Ninja Forms is installed, we're going to see our Ninja Forms menu icon on the left, and we can click on Dashboard to see a list of our forms in the system. For the moment, we just have the default Contact Me form. That's the one that comes with Ninja Forms. We can click on our settings or widget icon here, and we can see we can edit it, we can duplicate the form, we can preview it, and we can view the submissions that were submitted through this form. So people that filled out the forms, or we can delete it. We also get a copy of the shortcode, which will show the form on the front end. So for now, we're going to create a new form, and they have a couple of templates in here. So if you're creating a quote request, or if you are creating an event registration form, you might want to click on those and check out how they set theirs up, or maybe just modify it for your needs. But we're going to start with a blank form. So this is the main interface of Ninja Forms. As you can see on the left, we have our visual builder, or where our forms are going to be. And on the right-hand side, we have all of the available options for our form fields, right? We also have 3 tabs up here, which we'll go through. This is our main builder. This is what's going to happen after our form is filled out. And we have some advanced options as well as a preview form link. Back on this page, if you click on this little plus icon, it'll bring up your form fields. So I think the easiest way to do this is we will use it as a real world example. We're going to create a form for applying for a children's summer camp. So if you're a parent and you were filling out a form to send your child to summer camp, that's the basic theme we're going to go with. Our form isn't really going to be a great one, but it'll show you the different form fields for it. So to start out our form, we're going to start with the user information field. So we want to find out some information about the person filling out the form. So the first couple of fields, we're going to add a first name and a last name. And on this interface, this is the name of the field. It'll give you a little demo of what it looks like. And if you hover over this widget, we can see a couple different things. This first icon is to duplicate the field. So if you wanted to copy the field and then edit it to be something else, you can do that. If you hover over it and we have the trash can icon, that will obviously delete the form or the form field. And we can also reorganize our fields just by dragging and dropping on this screen. So we can add our fields and then kind of reorganize them how we'd like. By clicking on the field, we're going to get options on the right-hand side. This first set of options is going to be the basic options for each field, or the field settings, and then we have display, advanced, and administration, which are going to essentially be the same for most fields. Yeah, so you can see that we can have a help text and description, and under advanced, there's some other placeholders and things like that. So I'll show you exactly how those work. The administration section, it's very unlikely you're going to need those. We'll go over a couple options that include those later on, but for now, we'll just do our first name. So the label is what's going to show up on the field itself. So you can change this, and you can see it'll change over here, but we'll leave that first name. The label position, you can when you're looking at the form, there's the label that says what that form field is. You can decide whether or not you want that to be the form default, or if you want it to be, say, above the input field, below it, to the left, to the right, something like that. The default is just to be above it, but you can change that around. You can put in help text. So this field is for your first name. Or we could put that under the description, and then help would be, if it was like a date or something like that, you could put in like how to use it or something like that. So you can use the help or the description field to kind of help people along. The description is what the field is, and you can put in a help text where if it's a field that may not be obvious as to what it is, or if there's some kind of special instructions, you'd put that under the help text. So we'll just put this as help text, right? Under advanced, we have default value and placeholder, and these are similar but a little bit different. The default value is if we wanted something in the actual input field, where if they don't fill out that field, that is going to be accepted as the value. So this would be more useful in things like drop downs and stuff like that. But if you wanted a value to be in that field but actually be submitted, then we can put a default value. The placeholder is a little bit different. This is something that's going to be in our input field, but once they click the input field and start typing, that's going to disappear. So it's just more of an example. So if we wanted to put in as our placeholder John Smith for the first name under the placeholder, it would just be John. So let me show you what that's going to look like. So first we'll do a default value, and we'll click done, and we'll just quickly publish this, and we'll say camper application. And you can see if we have this toggle here, when we publish our form, it will automatically add a submit button if that's toggled. If for some reason you don't want one, we could just disable that. But we're going to put one in, and we're going to publish our field, our form, and then we're going to click on preview and take a look at it. So you can see that now I have a default value. This is our description here, and this hover icon, when you hover over the information, this is the help text. So you can see the difference between those two things, right? If they have some special instructions, you might want to put it here or something like that. And we can see that John, if I start typing, you can see that I'm typing within the word. So if I leave this, if I don't touch this field, John is going to be submitted as my first name, which is a little bit different than a placeholder. So if we move John to placeholder and we publish, if I refresh my page, you can see John is here again, but once I start typing, John disappears, right? So it's just an example of what I would want to put. So mostly you'll be using placeholders, not default values. All right, so let's go on to the rest of our fields. The majority of these settings for every field are going to be similar. So it's really these that change, but let's go in for our last name and put Smith just to match up with our first name. And then you can see it inserted a submit button when I save the field. So let's go back to our fields, and we will say, let's get an address, right? So we want the street address, we want their city, we want their, if they're in the US, we want the US state. Let's just say US state, and we can also pick country, and we want, let's say we want all their contact information, so we'll do zip code, phone, and email. Now I'm just going to do the state really quickly because I'm going to delete that, but you can see this gives them a drop-down field of all of these options. Now for these options, you can drag and drop them if you want, you can edit them, you can select a default value, or you can delete them by pressing the X. So this is a drop-down field, and I'll show you those specifically, but this is kind of a preset one which includes all of the available options. Yeah, but I'm going to delete that for now so I can show you the other address fields. Oh, I duplicated it. So now we delete it. So now we have our address fields, right? So we'll go to address, and we have our label. We can make it required, and required obviously means if a field is required and they try to submit the form without entering anything in, it'll give them an error message and say that the field is required and has to be filled out. We can put in restrictions as to you know what they're allowed to put in, something like character limits and stuff like that. We can put in our help and our description text. We can put in placeholders, right? But we probably wouldn't do that for address. And the same thing for the city. So this is just a city field. There's no, nothing special about it other than it's made for cities. Countries is going to be a drop down of every country, and that's already in the system. It's kind of built in as a list. So the only special thing here is we can select a default value. So if we want the United States to be selected as soon as they open up the field, then we can change that in the default value. And the zip code, and again, there's some restrictions, some display information, but basically this is just an input field set up for zip codes. Phone number is the same, and email address. The email address is a little bit different because it is going to verify the format. So I'm going to make sure that whatever's entered is something like username @domain.com. So it'll make sure that it is actually an email address. And we can, again, put in help and descriptions. We can put in a placeholder, things like that. So that's our address. So let's just publish that and take a look at what it looks like. So we have our first name field, our last name field, our address, our city, our country dropdown, our zip code, our phone number, and our email address. So So we'll go in here again. Now we have our user information fields, and that's pretty sorted. And so now we might have some additional questions. So the first thing I'm going to go over is the single checkbox. And what that is useful for, it would more than likely be used for something like agreeing to terms and conditions. So we could do something like, I agree with the terms and conditions. And the default value should, let's say, it should be checked or unchecked for terms and conditions, yeah? And then if we make it a required field, it means that they have to check the box in order to submit the form, right? And the other information is fairly basic. We could put in our description, we could put in the actual terms and conditions, or we could link using the link button. So creating a link in our text, we could link them to open up in a new page our actual terms and conditions, yeah? So that is our single checkbox. And then we're going to get into other fields, and we're going to skip date for a second and go checkbox list, multi-select, radio list, and select. Now, why do I pick those 4 fields? Because those 4 fields are where your users are going to be selecting an option out of multiple options. So let's do checkbox list, multi-select, radio list, and select. So while these 4 are similar in the sense that they're going to be allowing the user to select one option, they're a little bit different in both in display and also with multi-select and checkbox list. Sorry, with checkbox list and multi-select, the user can choose one or more options, right? But with radio list and select, they can only choose one option, right? So these have some default values in here. So I'll just show you what they look like on the front end, right? So this is our checkbox list. Now, obviously this doesn't look very good, but I'll show you how to make these look good. But you can see that I can choose one or more options. With multi-select, if I hold down my control key on Windows or the Apple key on Apple, you can see I can select one or more options, right? So these two, checkbox list and multi-select. But with my radio list, it means I can only select one. Once I select another one of the options, it disappears off the previous one. And the same thing with drop-down. I can only select one here. So they differ a little bit depending on how you want it to look and also whether or not you want them to be able to pick one or multiple options. Now, the options for these are going to look fairly similar, yeah? You can make it required, and you can also edit the options that are available by entering in, this is under the label, that's what the user is going to see. Under the value, and we'll talk more about value later, or calculation values, this is if the value of the field means something different to you as the form creator that isn't necessarily important for them to see. So this could be, for example, for the calc value, if you were creating a quiz, right, these options would be the quiz answers, but to you, it might have a numeric value. So 5 points, 0 points, and 0 points. And that's what you're interested in seeing. And that allows you to get emails with printouts of the values from your perspective, and they'll only see it from their perspective, the answers. But we'll talk more about that in calculating fields. But for now, we're just going to have the different options that are available. You can add a new one by clicking on this plus icon. You can delete them by clicking on the X. And if applicable, so this is more for our drop downs, you can pick the default value that will appear by selecting these checkboxes here. We can still put in a help text and description, and we can rearrange these just by dragging and dropping. So those are our multiple options or one or more options fields for when we're collecting information. And now we'll do a date field, and that is just where it pops open the calendar for them to choose from. You can make it required. You can default the date to the current date, which we'll do. Put in our display information, and under advanced you can do a start year and an end year. So if you're doing, like, for example, birthday year, it's unlikely anybody was going to be born before 1915. So we could put 1915 here, and we could do the end year, which would be today's year, 2017. They're probably not going to be filling out your form, but we could put that in. And we click done and publish, and then we're going to refresh our screen, and we're going to see we have our date field. So now, depending on what they pick here, it's going to change the field down here. We can choose a default date format. So let's say that we wanted to have that as the format that it's shown in. So if we publish this again and refresh, you'll see that it shows the date now with the day and the date that I'm recording, which is September 20th, 2017. So that is our date field. And then we have a single line text and paragraph text, and these are probably what people are going to be using more often. So if you're creating a simple contact form, you could do single line text for name. We have a name field, but you can also use single line text. It's basically for any kind of short answer that you expect to receive. So it could be, what's your favorite color? Single line text, they just enter in whatever their favorite color is. Or for a contact form, it could be the name or anything else that you'd like. The paragraph text is the same, similar to single line text, except it's expecting multiple rows of content. So for the contact form, this would be the actual box that we would get their comments in. And for both of these, we can make it required. We can also limit it to a certain amount of characters or words for our paragraph text. So you can take a look at what that looks like. So single line text and our comments box, our big paragraph text box. All right, so now we're going to do our layout fields, right? Because pricing fields we're going to handle in a separate video, and the miscellaneous fields, we'll cover a couple of these, but the hidden, the anti-spam, and the reCAPTCHA we're going to do separately. And the pricing fields we'll do during our calculation, yeah? So first we'll do layout fields. So first we have HTML, and what HTML is, it allows you to enter in text into your form. So if you had a few paragraphs of text that you wanted to put in the middle of your form fields, that's really the best way to use this field, and you have your formatting options. It's not really a large scale, for large scale HTML, it's really just for basic text and formatting. So if you wanted to put in some text in between your fields, that's what you would use for, that's what you would use the HTML field for. And then we have our divider, and what this does is it just creates a dividing line between sections. So let's say that under our contact information, we wanted to create a dividing section, and then we wanted to use our HTML field to create our section header, right? And we can click here and say that is a headline. So this drop down, we can do different headlines, or we can just do a normal paragraph, which is the P. And we can format this and make it, I just took off the bold, but we can make it bold, all kinds of different stuff. So let's now just do done and publish that, and you'll be able to see this is our combination of our HTML field. Oh, I did it in a different place, yeah. So you can see that this is our headline, and this is our dividing line down here. And again, this doesn't look great, but I'll show you how to style all these later. But so if you wanted a text kind of divider between fields, we can use our HTML field for that, or adding in paragraphs of text. And our divider is just a simple dividing line. So now that we have, essentially, or actually, we'll go over the number field and the star rating. So number field is just a field where you expect to get only a number. So we could have something like age, and you can put in a minimum and a maximum number, and we can also change, there's a little, see these up and down arrows, this is also going to appear on the front end, and this step is the increment in which numbers increase or decrease using those arrows. So I'll just show you. So if we had an age field, and we publish that, and we take a look, you can see that if I try to type in letters, it won't work. I can only type in numbers to this field. So if I have 1 in there and I click up, it's going to go up by 1. Now if I go back to my age field and I change this step to 5 and refresh my form, you'll see that now it'll go up by 5. And it also gives me a little error that says it has to be increments of 5. Yeah? and it'll go up to 25. So if you're looking for a specific increment or a specific, something divisible by, right, then we want to put that in the step field. And the last field we're going to go over here is star rating. And this, as you'd imagine, allows us to do a star rating. You can choose the number of stars. You can make it a required field. So if you're creating a form for a product review or something like that, we can have a star rating in there. And we'll publish that and we'll take a look at it. And you can see I have my little star rating that I can change. All right. So those are all the default fields that are used for creating the majority of forms. You can see that it's quite easy to create forms with this builder. You just kind of drag and drop. You set your options. You hit your publish button and you'll be able to do it. Pricing fields again and hidden fields we're going to be showing in different videos because that includes some calculation which I want to go over with you, and the hidden fields about how to get a little bit of more information from users as needed. Yeah. So for the moment we're done adding our fields. So now let's talk about what happens when somebody fills out our field, right? And that is through these emails and actions. And you can create a new one by clicking that plus button. Some of these have to do with extensions, so you can say add them to your MailChimp mailing list or something like that. But for now, we have a success message, which shows them some text, so like something like thank you for filling out our form. The email notification, so that's this, which will send out an email notification to the admin or to somebody else. Success message is this one, admin email is this one, so you can add new ones. So if you wanted multiple emails to go out, then you can use this. You can redirect them to a page or a URL, and store submission. And what store submission is that when somebody fills out your form, all of those entries are going to actually be saved in the backend of WordPress. So in addition to getting an email, you might want to be able to review those through the backend of the WordPress website. So you just click on the settings to modify these. So this is the text that they would see after they fill out the form. This is the email where it's sent. Now this shortcode here, that will send an email to the email address that is input under the general settings of your WordPress website. So whatever the admin email is, that is what that is referring to. You can also just type in an email address and it'll send it to that. And you can modify this email template, how it looks. And you can also use this button here to insert the form fields, right? So the form field answers. So this will automatically send them every field. But let's just say that you just wanted to send them an email with a little bit of the information, or you wanted to specifically format the email in a particular way. Then we can just do something like that, and then click on this button. It'll show us all the fields that are in our form. And let's say that we wanted to get the last name. So we would change that to last name, and then it'll show the last name. So these are called merge tags, and we can drop those in to kind of format the email how we want. And the last item here is store submission, and that just means that that is enabled, so it is going to store entries into the back end. And then I will just show you this redirect. If we have that, you can redirect them and then enter in the URL. But we want to have a redirect or a success message. We don't want to have both of those. So we're going to turn that off for now. Actually, we'll delete it. Yeah. So now we publish our form, and we'll preview it one last time. All right. And so I'm just going to show you how that works. I'm going to create a new form, a basic contact. Actually, we can use this contact me form. Yeah. So we'll go to contact me, and we'll do preview, and I'll just put in my information here quickly. And submit that. Yeah. And now we will see this is the information that it gives me. So if I go to emails and actions, you can see it stored it. It also sent out email confirmations, and it shows me this success message. Form submitted successfully, a confirmation email was sent to, right? And so we have this here. Now this looks a little jarbled because this isn't actually on a page, it's just using the preview. If it was on a page, it looks a little bit better. But and also if I click done and I close this, if I go into submissions and I select contact me, you can also see that now I can look at this. I can see what my form fields are. I can edit it to look at the exact answers on a longer form, and it's all in there. So that is a quick overview of Ninja Forms, how to create a form, and the different form fields that are available. So the last thing I'm going to show you is how to insert a form onto a page. So in order to do that, we'll go to Pages, and let's say we're going to put our simple contact form on our contact page. And you'll see this Add Form button when you have Ninja Forms installed. So just click that button. You can select the form and click Insert, and that'll put the shortcode in. You can also copy that shortcode and paste it in from the Forms page. And if we click Update Now and we take a look at our page, we'll see now that our form is there. Now, when we're building the front end of our website, we're actually going to be using page builders and stuff like that. So we will insert our forms a little bit differently. We won't do it through this default editor, but if you just want to get your pages up, if you're just putting in your content now and you're going to manage it later, and you just want to have the form on a page so you can test it and look at it, then this is the way we insert it for right now. But I'll show you all that stuff later on. So I hope you have a good understanding of how to build forms with Ninja Forms. If you have any questions or you run into any problems, please feel free to post on the support forums or post something in the Q&A, and somebody will try to get back to you as soon as possible.